a PC caucus.
Thank you so much.
Sharing your time, I'm assuming?
Absolutely.
Okay,
thank you.
Proceed.
Minister, I have 7 questions from students, so I just wanted you to know the source. I know you'll be forthright in your response. These are earnest, honest questions from them. The first one, and they've done their homework as good students do, refers to page 7 of the business plan. A key strategy, and I quote, improve the responsiveness of student financial supports to help Albertans benefit from adult learning opportunities. Obviously a key, not only a key strategy, but a worthwhile goal. The question, and I'll read it exactly as I was given it, reads like this. The first one, the Repayment Assistant Program, or RAP, threshold has been increased to $25,000. However, the new minimum wage, with the new minimum wage, the threshold is surprisingly low. A student working full-time hours at minimum wage earns too much to take advantage of RAP since they earn over $31,000. So what are you doing to ensure that Alberta students are actually able to access the program?
Yeah, so, you know, we, as I've said before, we're conducting a review of all of our student financial aid programs that are in place, and we're looking at this particular issue around the threshold of RAP to see if there are some improvements that we can make to that as well as other parts of the system.
Because as you can see, they've identified that as an issue, and I'm sure your officials will attend to that, and maybe they can look forward to your communications on changes that are required for that. The follow-up question to that they have is, with students working full-time jobs no longer being eligible for the repayment assistance program because of the increases in minimum wage, what else is the government doing to improve repayment affordability?
So again, this is the subject of the student financial aid review that we're undertaking, and students have been engaged in that process, as I mentioned earlier, and we continue to work with all of our stakeholders to look at the kinds of improvements that students have been asking for.
So it's forthcoming, and you'll continue to consult with students, because so far they felt a little out of the process, just you don't know that. Let's go to question 3 from the students. Back in 2013, the government allocated $4 million in a pilot project for addressing on-campus mental health. And of course, this is an aside, Minister, you and I had questions and answers about this in the House yesterday. This is actually something slightly different. It goes on, and we later expanded that funding to $4.5 million and reached thousands of students at post-secondary campuses across the province. This funding, when they wrote this, it read, this funding is set to expire, and I notice in the budget you've identified $3.6 million for on-campus mental health, but haven't explained how exactly this funding will be allocated. So their question, in a nutshell, how will you allocate the $3.6 million?
Yeah. Yes, and so that was one of the tasks of the advisory panel on the post-secondary mental health supports that's completed its work. They've submitted their recommendations to the department, and our department is reviewing them to make a decision on how we will go forward with implementing them. And as I mentioned yesterday, in response to questions on mental health supports, we're also working with our partners at Alberta Health to see what kinds of other opportunities there are to enhance mental health supports for students.
Okay, so it's, again, forthcoming.
Yes.
They're just looking for that sustainability and predictability. Question 4, last year, and again, these aren't my words, you cut on-campus mental health funding from $4.5 million in support to $3.6 million, with $3.6 million being the same amount identified in this budget as well. The Alberta Mental Health Review Committee identified post-secondary institutions as a place in need of investment. In the context of a $55 billion budget overall and a $3 billion budget for this department alone, this is their question, why is this budget neglecting students on the issue of mental health?
Well, I would take issue with the characterization of us neglecting students. Of course, we're providing $3.6 million funding for mental health supports on campus, and that's equivalent to the amount that we provided in our budget last year. Like I said, we're reviewing the recommendations of the advisory panel, as well as working with our partners in health to enhance the kinds of supports we can offer our students on campus.
And
we take this issue of providing mental health supports very seriously.
I know you do.
And we're committed to delivering the resources that students need.
But let's not pick on the one word from this one student. What would your answer be when they refer to dropping from $4.5 million to $3.6 million? a couple of years ago and keeping it at that level?
There may be some issues with respect to start and end dates of the different funding programs. All I can say, Mr. Rodney, right now is that the money that we've committed in the budget this year is the same amount of money that we committed in the budget last year. So year over year, there has been no decrease in the funding that we've providing for
but they're obviously, if we take a 30,000-foot level, this is a huge concern for them. So I just encourage and applaud you to not just keep it at the same levels and not just increase, but let's get better return on investment, because as other members have pointed out, and as you know, it can be a matter of life and death, and that's not stretching it. So we'll go on to, there's only 2 more questions from them here. I've got many others. Can you outline the steps that you have taken to mitigate the impact of the tuition freeze on independent academic institutions? So they're talking about the 5 out of the 26.
Right.
Those who have not received backfill this year, but also not in previous years. And can you identify how you're helping keep education affordable at those 5 schools?
So the independent academic institutions aren't subject to the tuition fee regulation, and they are not subject to the tuition freeze the way the 21 publicly funded post-secondary institutions are. So King's College, for example, or Ambrose University, they've been free to raise tuition as they see fit. Of course, we've heard from students as well that affordability of education at those institutions is an issue, and we're looking at the issue of tuition at the independent academic institutions as part of our tuition review. But right now, the tuition freeze hasn't been applied at those institutions.
And you identified it. It is an issue there as well. And let's face it, sometimes people may not know innocently that there's more than 2 universities in Alberta, and there's more than universities in Alberta, and there's more than colleges in Alberta, and so on and so on. So there's many different, of the more than 2 dozen, it's not a one-size-fits-all, right? Mm-hmm. Last question from them. Will post-secondary institutions in Alberta have access to, get this, federal health transfer money, which is to be allocated for mental health initiatives? So obviously you work with your provincial counterparts. Mm-hmm. As a government, whether it's you, health minister, premier's office, somebody working with the federal health minister to make sure that the mental health initiatives allocation, federal health transfer money is actually being allocated as such.
Right.
And could you include that in addition to what we were just talking about?
So we're working with our partners in the federal government to understand the terms and conditions of the transfers that they're providing. We do know right now that the federal government won't be transferring any of the mental health support funding directly to the Department of Advanced Education. But we are going to be working with Alberta Health once they have a clearer understanding of what the conditions of that transfer from the federal government are going to be, to see if there are any opportunities for directing.
Hopefully that's good news. We need you to keep fighting, for Alberta federally as well.
Absolutely.
I've been told I have 2 minutes, but I've got like 25 questions. Could the NDP give me their 20? If I said please, I'll just keep going quickly. In the 3rd paragraph of your ministry overview on page 5 of the 2017 to 2020 business plan, so page 1 of Advanced Ed, 3rd paragraph down, there's a statement that your ministry, and I quote, supports academic research and innovation. So a lot of folks in Alberta, Canada, home of entrepreneurship and being a maverick and can-do attitude, they want to know this. What connection and cross-ministry supports are in place with, for instance, economic development and trade to foster and apply industry innovation? So can you be specific what you and the other minister are doing to do this, and also how you measure that success? Because this is a huge opportunity right now.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. We do work with our partners in economic development and trade, particularly Alberta Innovates, to support the innovation and research activities that are going on in our post-secondary institutions. We recently made a trip to Ottawa to talk to our federal counterparts there, to let them know what our research priorities are. Of course, Alberta Innovates and our post-secondary institutions are aligned on our research priorities of clean energy innovation, smart agriculture, and healthcare excellence. And when we met with our federal counterparts, we got the impression that we're very well aligned with their priorities. Of course, we're awaiting more details, of course, from the federal government on how they'll be allocating the money that they want to spend on those priorities.